welcome to the Prosperous Living podcast. So today I'm so excited to have Jason with us, and I can't wait to listen to him and let him share his expertise with you and all the amazing and wonderful value that he's going to provide. So Jason, could you give us a little bit of background, your story, and what led you to where you are now?
Absolutely. Jenny, thank you so much for inviting me on. I love the idea of prosperous living, not necessarily just being monetary, right? But being like all the things that connect in. And so excited to be here. So as far as I'm concerned, I own an agency, a go-to-market agency called Alpha Brand. I also run a group coaching program. So I'm the strategist behind a group coaching program called Pipeline to Profit. And my background is probably typical for anybody who's sitting in a seat like me. So I grew up in Texas and had all the opportunities that anybody could, imagine having. I went to high school, I went to college at University of Texas, Dallas, and then I went and I launched out into the corporate world. And I found myself really intrigued by sales and sales strategy, even though when I was in college, I really thought that I was going to go and join an advertising agency, like the whole Mad Men thing, right? Like where you're just in an ad agency and you're coming up with really cool deals for like Coca-Cola or something.
Yes.
And that isn't what happened. But I did find my way into marketing, which was a little bit of the dream. And so I found my way into marketing on the sales side. And I found it into marketing through marketing partners, right? Like marketing services companies. When I was in college, I didn't know any of those existed. Like you think there's advertising agencies and then there's, other types of companies. And so that was kind of an interesting revelation for me. And so my entire career for the past 15 or 20 years, I have been managing and running and leading sales and marketing teams, high-performing teams in sales and marketing in the marketing world. And so when I started my own company, I feel like that gave me a really interesting perspective because from a sales perspective, I was always selling into companies that wanted to reach consumers. So I was on a B2B selling side. But then from that perspective, because of the agencies that I was in and the work that we did and where I was, from a seniority perspective, I was always also very involved in the marketing strategy for those companies, right? Like you become the point of contact and then they're asking you questions. And so you get deep into marketing strategy. And so that was really amazing. But then I think what that did for me as I kind of launched out into my own company was it gave me this perspective of what companies who want to market to consumers potentially need. But then at the same time, also recognizing that most companies out there that are, 10, 15, 20 million, or even less than the $10 million valuation, they the same experience, haven't had the same opportunity to test and all of the same budgets that we had in these marketing agencies. So when I launched my company, I said, what I really want to do is I want to take the knowledge that I've gained over the past, 15, 20 years in companies that were 15 million, 20 million, 70 million, $100 million valuation, and wanted to take that experience and bring it to companies that didn't have access to that. Okay. And so that's what I do today.
That's wonderful. So do you still primarily work with a certain size company, or do you ever work with individuals or like solopreneurs or really small businesses?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And so when I started my company, I really started targeting companies that were kind of in that $10 to $15 million or targeting that $10 to $15 million in annual revenue. And I created the Alpha Brand agency component. And then what I learned through just being out in the marketplace, so to more directly answer your question, I learned that there were a ton of solopreneurs and there were a ton of people that, were under $1 million in revenue that also needed access to the same learning, the same tools, right? All that kind of stuff. And so that is absolutely why I created the Pipeline to Profit coaching program, was specifically for that, because I would go out, I'd be talking to these, founders, and they'd be like, man, this solution sounds great. This is amazing. And then what happens, right? Like you get to the pricing component and they would go, whoa, dude, like there's no way we could ever afford that. And so what I thought was there has to be a way. There has to be a way for me to get them this knowledge. And that coaching program has made it possible for me to do that.
Okay. Oh, that's beautiful. So I can imagine in your career, you said 15 to 20 years of doing this, there has been some immense changes when it comes to marketing. Yes. And in recent years, and with the AI coming in, I would love to hear your thoughts about what is going on, the direction it's taking. How is this affecting businesses? Is it making it easier or harder? Is it what do you see now?
Yeah. So it's so funny that you asked that, because so when I first started in the marketing industry, I was working with a marketing solutions partner that partnered with trade organizations. So think about the International Facility Managers Association, and all the facility managers around the country come to their association for resources. And so that's what this company did. And I distinctly remember when I started with this company back in the early 2000s, that part of our offering to these agencies was taking a directory that we built, burning it onto a CD, and then mailing those CDs out for their members, right? So
wow.
From that to where we are today, marketing has absolutely changed.
The memories that just flooded my mind with the burning on a CD, all the mixed CDs that I used to make. Okay. So
and what's so funny is I joined the company at that time, the burn the CD time, but they had been around since before that. And so there was a time in the life cycle of their offering that they actually also did print directories. And so it was we're going to print them. Then it went to CD. But I remember, I hope no legal entities are listening, but I had a huge library of stuff on LimeWire and Napster. So burning CDs, man, what a time to be alive. We thought we were so cool,
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
But to answer your question, I think that marketing has definitely changed, but what I'll also say is that for the solopreneur, for the smaller company, I think the evolution of marketing has absolutely been for the better, right? And so good. I think about it like this: when we're thinking about AI and the role that AI can play, I think that right now there is, there are three buckets of people. There's still people who think AI is a fad and it's going to go away, and that, they hate AI and they'll never use it. Right. What I would say to those people is, think about what happened when people thought social media was a fad. Right. So AI is the next kind of social media trend, right, in the realm of things. And so I would ask you to open your mind to how you can use AI. I think there's group two, and group two is the playing around with AI group, where maybe they're just using the free version of ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or something like that. And so from that perspective, I think that those people are on the right track. And then obviously group number three would be AI power users. And so a power user is potentially somebody who's already integrated AI into the things that they do, or they're so far on the other side that basically they have started to create things with AI. And what I mean by that is their own little AI apps and, AI agents and those kind of things. And so that's kind of the world as I see it, as far as people and as it relates to AI. Now, the recommendation that I would give to people as it kind of centers on that is this: AI is one of those things that I like to envision as, when you think about ChatGPT, think about being able to bring a new employee into your business, right? Say you can call it an intern, you can call it an associate, right? However you want to label it. But then think about that intern. You got so lucky because that intern has multiple PhDs in tons of subjects, right? And so from that perspective, when you think about it like that, what would you do if you had access to an intern in your company that had multiple PhDs? Number one, you would probably be super excited. Number two, you would probably start to think about interesting ways that you could leverage the knowledge that this intern has. And so that's the way I like to think about AI. And I like to tell people to think about AI. Now, from that perspective, what I also think is that when we're using AI, most people are just kind of scratching the surface around what it can do. And so the thing that I try to kind of recommend around that is think about redundant tasks within your week. And there are probably 5 to 10 redundant tasks that you do every single week. And potentially at least half of them, if not all of them, you probably hate doing. You're like, I got to do this again, right? Well, yeah, can replace you in that. Right. And it can do it in a couple of ways, right? Like there's prompting. So think about giving AI a role, a job, and then number 3, telling it how you want the information to come back to you and what format you want it to come back to you. Or there's the idea of building little machines to be able to do it for you. And I think of those as like custom GPTs, where you literally can go into ChatGPT. You can give it a role, an AI engineer that is expertly versed in being able to create custom GPTs. Then you can outline exactly the task that you do that you hate doing that is repeatable. And ChatGPT will give you the instructions for creating a custom GPT. And so when we think about that as it relates to marketing, think about all the things that we're being pushed to or recommended to do. Well, you need to post at least once a day on your main social media platforms. You should absolutely be considering, if not already, creating video, right? You need to be able to create short form video. You need to be able to create long form video. You need to be able to, analyze your analytics and see what's working, right? Like all these different marketing tasks, if you will. Building custom GPTs around those things is a huge unlock for smaller business owners. So for me, in my business, some of the custom GPTs that I've built, the hooks that I use on social media, so that introduction into the post that makes people want to read more, those are created by AI. And I have created multiple GPTs relative to the type of hook that I want to create. So is it going to be an agitation hook where I'm taking a hard stance on something and people are like, man, where's this post going to go? Right. Or is it an identity hook where I'm trying to connect to the identity of the reader and ultimately calling out something that I believe that they're feeling? Right. So custom GPTs are really great for creating that hook. Once I have that hook, what I then can do is I can pump it into another GPT that I've created. And I've created multiple around different types of content. But imagine the types of content that were recommended that we should write. Okay, so you need to kind of tap into know, like, and trust. Well, what kind of confidence type content are you going to create that builds trust? Well, what if you had a custom GPT that only creates confidence content? It's only positioning you in a way that shares insights that help people to understand that they can trust you. What about story related content? I think we all know that like stories are just like the oldest form of communication. So what if you built a custom GPT that helps you to tell stories around the experiences that you have? Now, the reality is this, is that I think the perception is that when AI writes content, then AI is doing the lifting and writing the content, and it is the content, and the content is general, and all these different misconceptions that people have. But depending upon what you give AI, hey, I had this experience happen. And what I want you to do is I want you to leverage Donald Miller's story brand framework to help me tell a story about this experience that I had. Well, is that AI's story? No, absolutely not. It's your story, right? But you may not be an expert in Donald Miller's story brand, but you know that it's a format that you can use to tell an impactful story. And so those are some of the things where I think AI can really help you to level up your game, but at the same time, still allow for you to infuse your personality deeply into that so that it's still your content. Right now, here's my caveat. My caveat is this, is that it's only going to get it about 90% of the way. Okay. So it's going to have the M dashes, which is that really long dash that everybody calls out and says, oh, that's the AI dash. Well, really, that is a copywriting piece of punctuation that people have used for years. If you actually, in most writing applications, type 3 dashes together, it will put an M dash in your content, right? So it already existed before, but AI definitely overuses the M dash. So you might have to remove the M dashes, right? Like you may have to say, oh, I would never speak like that, or I would never use that turn of phrase. But AI can definitely help you to simplify, if not create efficiency, just in one way around the content that you create. And so if it normally takes you an hour to create a post, and that's why it feels so daunting for you to create a presence that builds awareness and credibility, is, man, I don't have 5 hours a week to dedicate to doing posts. Well, what if it was just 20 minutes? What if it was just 25 minutes? And AI definitely allows for you to be able to do something like that.
And if it gives you, I see it more as kind of a starting point. Like if I know that I have ideas that I can't seem to format into the words, I can just put the ideas into it and see what it comes up with. But you don't just take, copy, and paste. In my opinion, I then look at it and I think, okay, well, where does this not really sound like me? And how do I want to change this? And like, it's a good base or a good start, but it's not necessarily the end product. And at least that's how I've used it. I am very much in that second category. I use it very minimally. But I know that there's so many different things and automations that you can set up using AI, and some of that gets a little bit tricky from what I've heard or been shared with so far. Like when it comes to maybe doing DMs using AI, where then you're not even there, but AI is having these conversations with people. I don't know, is this any type of strategy that you use or teach, or do you kind of stay away from that? I'm curious.
So I love that question. And so here's the way that I think about it. And I think about it in a similar way to what you just said. So number one, AI is not to replace you in that regard. It's to enhance you or to create efficiency for you so that you can buy some of your time back, right? And so I do think that you need to absolutely read the things that AI generates, infuse yourself into those, that kind of thing. And so, as it relates to even just this one aspect of content that we're talking about, how much of your time are you willing to buy back? I think that that's number one, right? And everybody's going to have a different comfort level around that, right? But like, buy your time back in that regard. AI is perfect for that. Now, as it relates to like outbound outreach and those kind of things, here's what I think about from an automation perspective. When I think about building systems, and realistically, that's one of the things that I help people do when we work together, is I help them to build repeatable systems so that they can consistently grow, right? Consistently generate pipeline, consistently generate engagement, those kind of things. And so when I think about automation, I think about this. I think about how is it that you can take the repeatable things that you would do all the time, and how can you do those in an automated fashion? So here's what I mean by that. If you're going to send connection requests to people because you realize that they're a great addition to your network, you don't necessarily have to push the button individually on every connection request. The message that you would include in that connection request is potentially going to be the same across the board, right? So like, how do you create a message that is applicable to why you want to connect with those people? So when you're building systems and automation, what I would say is, I don't know that we're in a place where AI can completely replace you there and do it expertly. But what I do think is creating a system that allows for you to take the most repeatable parts of that process and pull yourself out of them so that you can be there to engage with the people who do want to talk, who do want to engage, those conversations that are really relevant, that's a place where like, yes, take the repeatable out so that I can show up in the places where I need to be, the things that only I can do. I think that's the best way to look at building a system for automation in your business.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I love that because it gets a little bit tedious, right?
Yeah.
Searching and connecting and doing all of that stuff. Yeah, it can be a little bit daunting. So
absolutely. And one of the things that I touch on a lot with people is I think that we've grown up in a world and in a time, and we receive tons of advice that basically says, hey, if you put the right stuff out there, then people are going to want to come and connect with you and ask you questions about your business. And I would love to say that that alone is a really solid strategy. Unfortunately, it's not, right? I think we're living in a time where we have to be the initiators of the things that we want, right? So if your ideal customer is, I don't know, the owner of a services brand or something like that, or maybe it's a local services company, it's naive to think that that guy is going to read something from you and then automatically go, man, I have to be part of Jason's world like that. Instead, what I would love to do is I would love to create an ecosystem of content for him, for that guy, and then basically invite him into that ecosystem, right? So I'm the initiator. I'm saying, hey, Bob, you're the owner of a local services company. I do is create content and strategy for local services company. I love to be connected. Now he's coming in and he's seeing that authority. He's seeing that credibility, but he didn't do it on his own. I invited him into it. And that one shift, I think, is very powerful for most of the business owners out there.
Yeah, that is very interesting. And so if you had to choose and say like one main strategy or place or location of where people in their business can, obtain more customers, I'm sure it depends on the person, on the business, but what do you see as most effective?
Absolutely. Right now? So the first thing that I always ask people to do is I ask them to identify their perfect customer, right? So who is that? And it probably relates to people that you're working with already, that you really love working with. Maybe they're leveraging the most of your services, right? Like all these different kind of things. And so really take a hard look at who you believe your perfect customer is, and then go find them online, okay? And so I do think digital is the best way to connect with your buyers, but depending upon who your buyer is, determines what platform they're probably on. Now, this is something that you absolutely can leverage AI to do, right? So you can go and AI can actually, so ChatGPT can do deep research, right? So when you have the $20 a month subscription to AI, you get access to deep research. And that's a research assistant that will go out and scour hundreds of resources and pull back information based on what you asked it. And so you absolutely can ask AI to help you figure out where your audience is hanging out. Some of the things that were insightful for me a couple of times that I've done that is I wasn't aware that there's an entire community, or communities, I should say, on Slack that are like defined by someone's role, right? So there's chief marketing officer communities, there's business owner communities, right? Like in Slack. I never would have thought to go there, look there, and do that, right? Yeah. And so, ChatGPT Deep Research helped me to figure that out. But that said, I think that's a place where you can insert AI to do some things. Now, that being said, then what do you do from there? The very first thing that you absolutely should do is create relevance for yourself there by generating valuable content. And valuable content is pointed at that buyer, right? And it's not saying buy from me. It's ultimately giving away the knowledge that you have for free, right? Now, I often hear from people, like what they'll often tell me is like, Jason, that sounds great and all, but like, I want to monetize that knowledge. Well, if what you're going to give away for free gives away the farm, then what you're trying to monetize doesn't go deep enough, right? So no matter what you offer, there should be the ability for you to give away pieces of what you know that create credibility and authority and relevance for you and that buyer. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's recommendation number one, is just, you need to create what I like to call a content ecosystem that they can reference, right? That builds credibility, that builds authority. Once you do that, then you'll start to see engagement towards that. Now, that engagement may not be comments, because they may not be commenters, but they potentially are going to be likes, and they're going to be shares and those kind of things. My secondary recommendation as it relates to that is, as you've created that content ecosystem, then start with those people, the people that are engaging with you. And there's a couple of different directions you could take that. I think direction number one is, if they look like your perfect buyer, then start a relationship with them, right? So send them a message. Thanks for engaging with my content. I love that. What was it in that piece of content that like stood out to you, right? Like, so there's that piece. The second thing is that if someone is engaging with your content and they're not your perfect buyer, they're telling you they want to support you, right? So maybe it's someone you've worked with before. Maybe it's just some rando guy that found your content and was like, this is useful, but he's not your buyer. Again, start a relationship or rekindle a relationship with that person, right? Hey, thanks so much for supporting my content. Hey, I don't know if you know, but this is what I do. Do you happen to know anybody or have anybody in your network that might be relevant for? Those are absolutely the best places to start. And I can almost guarantee that if you got really consistent with creating content, I call consistent posting at least 3 times a week on your social platform of choice, and then you started to get very intentional about engaging with the people who are engaging with you, no matter whether they're your perfect buyer or a supporter, then you could easily increase the size of your pipeline by 10 to 15%, right? Because that is found money. Those are found opportunities that most people are just ignoring, because the person who liked my post is someone I worked with, 2 years ago, or, they just aren't going back into it because they think that the strategy is the creation, but you wouldn't plant a seed and not water it, right? And so from that perspective, you have to think of those as seeds you're planting. And in order to get something out of it, you have to water that seed.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm curious too, what about the people who are engaging with your content? I don't want to say it in like a negative way, but because they want you to work with them. Like they're engaging with you in hopes that you will, start working with them instead. Do you know what I mean?
That is it. Yes, 100% I know. And so that is a really great question. And that's actually one of my favorite things to have happen, right? So it's the same advice that I would actually give somebody, or, let's call them negative comments that are actually coming in. Someone who doesn't believe what you believe and they're making a comment, right? Any comment is a good comment. And the reason for that is ultimately because if someone disagrees with you, you have the ability to double down and make a comment to that comment and obviously state your point again. Right? And any of that engagement that's happening is signaling to the algorithm that this is a topic that is important and more people need to see it. So obviously that's one as it relates to negative comments. Now, when people are in your comments and they want to sell you, again, that's another really great opportunity for you to double down, to restate your point, because most of the time when those people are trying to come at you to get you to work with them, they're reinforcing what you're saying. Oh, Jason, that's so great. I absolutely believe that too. And, that's part of the reason why I offer X, Y, and Z. And so it gives you an opportunity to have that validation from somebody who, yes, maybe is trying to sell you, but it's another opportunity for you to drive engagement on that post and for you to restate your point again. And the reality is this is, On LinkedIn specifically, okay, so obviously not every platform does this, but on LinkedIn specifically, what started to happen is they started to give an impression count for comments that you made. So if you go back to a comment that you made on anybody's post, you can see the visibility that you've gotten since making that comment. What that signals to me is that commenting is equally as important as posting. Okay? So it's another opportunity for you to get additional eyeballs on the ideas, the solutions, and what you offer.
Yeah. And so one final question is, how many places do you recommend people to focus their attention on at one time? Because you get so much information thrown at you telling you need to be everywhere all the time, but it's impossible to, in my opinion, really do a good job on each platform when you're trying to be on so many different platforms. So what do you recommend as far as how many to try to focus on at a time, and then maybe get one going really well before you add another one? Like, what do you usually tell people?
Yeah. So my overarching recommendation for that is, like we were talking about before, when you're trying to pick a platform that you want to focus on, absolutely pick the platform where your audience is the most prevalent. Okay. So for example, if you're a B2B company and so you work with other companies, then LinkedIn is absolutely the place that you should focus. Even if you have zero presence on LinkedIn today, you as a B2B company to be on LinkedIn. It's the same recommendation that I make to people who just like work with companies. Maybe they're sales reps, maybe they're, and they're out there and they're doing in-person networking and stuff. I'm like, oh, let's connect on LinkedIn. And if someone tells me, hey, I don't have a LinkedIn, that's the first thing I tell them, like, go out and create one, right? Because LinkedIn is built for B2B. So but absolutely pick the platform where your audience is. For a local services company, that platform might be Facebook, because obviously your audience is going to be the most prevalent. So that's the first recommendation, is obviously go where your customers are. Okay. Then number two is, I do agree and would absolutely recommend that you specifically focus on that platform and be consistent. So absolutely post at least 3 times a week on your platform of choice. Once you're doing that, I would not stop doing that or go on to something else for at least 90 days. Okay. Because you need to flex that muscle. So in the same way, with the muscle analogy, if you were working out, you wouldn't go do one workout, look at your gains from that workout and go, oh man, working out really isn't working for me. That would be silly. And everybody would be like, no, it takes time. Well, yeah, absolutely. So does creating content and posting on your social media platform. So give it at least 90 days. And so as you do that, then what I would say is, if that's the platform and you've done the recommendation where, okay, this is absolutely where your audience hangs out, then don't abandon that platform. Okay. So you should have built that muscle, right? Consider that maybe your biceps, right? So now you've built your biceps over 90 days. You're going to be very comfortable and have created a system and a process around them. So then look at potentially other platforms as it makes sense for you. But I would only add platforms relative to knowing that your buyer is there and what they're spending time they're doing, right? And so I do not subscribe to the idea that you have to be everywhere at every point in time. But what I do subscribe to is look at what's replicatable. So as an example, okay, one of the things that I would recommend is a secondary platform for people to go to if they're B2B, right? Like LinkedIn first, and then secondary platform. Absolutely would recommend YouTube. Okay. Now, different content formats. Okay. So we're talking video versus, written word. But I recommend YouTube because YouTube is absolutely the world's second largest search engine behind Google. Okay. So YouTube, you can either create long form videos and chop those up into short form videos. And so they now become YouTube shorts, they become Facebook reels, Instagram reels, they could go on TikTok, right? Like those kind of things. And so when we think about your expansion, then think about what could be replicated and then doesn't really require you to reinvent a strategy.
Yeah.
So if your secondary strategy is to create a video strategy for YouTube, even if that's just YouTube shorts, so 60-second videos, then understand that you can take that short and you can absolutely drag and drop it over to Instagram, share it with Facebook, put it on TikTok, and now you have expanded across 3 platforms. And all it took you was an extra 10 minutes a day relative to having that video ready to go.
Yeah, I love that. It just adds a little bit of like kind of almost relief, right? Like you don't have to try to push and do everything and be everywhere, which is just really refreshing.
Yeah, well, I mean, to encourage people out there and obviously to, kind of align with what you just said. So I have predominantly been on LinkedIn for years. And then when I got serious about it, maybe about 3 years ago or so, right? Like LinkedIn was my primary and only platform that I was posting to. Once I started to see kind of the advent of video and started to recognize the power that video had, then I did exactly what I just recommended. So I said, okay, where is the best place for me to then put video that I'm creating? And then YouTube was the logical place because it functions like a search engine. And so I wasn't immediately comfortable with creating long form video because I just felt like even with AI helping me to create a video script, I just felt like that was a pretty daunting task. So what I asked myself was, okay, can I talk for 60 seconds on a video? Can I convey an idea in under a minute? And the answer was obviously yes. You've talked to me across this entire time. You can see I'm fairly long-winded, right? So I was like, yeah, absolutely, I can do that.
Yes.
And so I started with that small task. And once I had a video where I was like, okay, yeah, and it came through repetition, right? So the first videos that I recorded, that 1 minute video took me 10 minutes. And it took me 10 minutes because I did like 10 takes. I didn't like the first one and so on and so forth, right? But once you do it and you start to get consistent with it, then once you have that piece of content, that one piece of content can go so many places. And so I just ask people to think about, what are you comfortable doing? And then what's just outside your comfort zone? Do that. Right? Do that thing that's just outside your comfort zone, because what you'll watch is your comfort zone grow. And the repeatability of those actions is just so powerful.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so we are going to start wrapping up, but do you have any final words of wisdom or encouragement for anybody that you want to make sure you share?
Love that. Thanks for asking. So I think the first thing that I would say is you can do it. Right. And I say that just simply because I think that so often we are our own greatest enemy, where we look at the experiences that we've had and the work that we've done, and we're like, man, I'm really good in a company. After I started my own company, right? Like it's a whole different ball game. And so I just want to encourage people and let them know that you're there for a reason and you can do it. Even just starting a company and becoming an entrepreneur, you're doing something that 90% of the rest of the world didn't have enough courage to do or doesn't have enough courage to do. So I would encourage in that way, number one. Number two, what I would say is absolutely keep it simple. Okay. So think about it from the standpoint of one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest things that I see very often is people and companies that provide services, and they think that the path to success is to provide as many services as they can and have this big exhaustive list of services. And if they offer everything, eventually somebody is going to want something. And that's flawed thinking, because the reality is, I want you to think about what you do really well.
Yeah.
Right? What is that tangible end state of working with somebody? What's that thing that you want to deliver? And then point everything that you do towards that. Having a singular offer then allows for you to simplify so much what you do, how you talk about it, how you create content around it, right? Like all of those different things. And so if you can do that and you can make it simple, then there's a path that you can follow within your business. There's a path that you can put people on as they work with you that leads to the success that they'll see in their business. It's much easier to think about and to look at that and to grab that and pull that down than it is to think about, oh man, do I need to add another service? Somebody said they wished we did this, right? Like all of those complexities and all of that back and forth is what's keeping you from being successful. And then the third and final thing that I would just give people is don't give up, right? Don't give up on it. So yes, there's going to be some heartburn. Yes, there's going to be some trials. Yes, there's going to be some struggles. But, consistency and repetition is absolutely the recipe for success, right? Michael Jordan was not the world's best basketball player when he first started. You know what I mean? Like
he cut from his high school team.
Yeah. And so I just think about that, and sports just makes such a great analogy for things like that. And so like keep examples of that in your mind and go, yeah, Michael Jordan wasn't Michael Jordan when he first started. And so if we can think about that and how great he was, it was consistency, it was repetition, it was determination, right? And those things will carry you super far and probably much further than you think that they will.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, as Napoleon Hill would say, persistence was, although not very glamorous, was the most important thing in success. So I love that. Also,
Absolutely. Jason, I agree. And I would just add on to that applies to everything. So that persistence applies to everything that we talked about today, to your investigating AI, to your marketing strategy, to your social media, right? Like all of it. If you're just a little bit more persistent than you are currently, big things will happen. And I'm here to cheer you on for it.
I love it. Thank you so much. This has been really delightful and so many great nuggets and wonderful information. I really appreciate it. So what is the best place for people to reach you?
Absolutely. So if you will go to 7figurepipeline.com, people can connect with me there. I actually every month run a free 2-day challenge for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, B2B founders. Okay. So if you want to connect with me, the absolute best way to do that is actually to jump into a free 2-day challenge that I've created where we focus on building that actionable offer that we were talking about. And actually in day 2, working on ways that you can leave that 2-day challenge and sell that offer in market. So 7figurepipeline.com, no dashes, just 7figurepipeline.com is the very best way to connect with me. And I would love to see you in one of my upcoming challenges.
Okay, amazing. And we'll definitely add that into the notes at the bottom as well. So thank you again, Jason. It was a really great pleasure. And until next time, expect prosperity.
Thanks, Jenny. I appreciate it. Have an amazing day.